once they come out of the prison, society discards them. The biggest challenge is access to justice. Biggest challenge is to work in prisons. Like, it's not a easy geography when you go in. It's emotionally and physically very taxing for us. You have to create an environment where they feel that this is better than being on the street. A lot of tribes in Madhya Pradesh, Odisha, Chhattisgarh, etc. are called criminal tribes. If you go to Gujarat, you will find some of the special prisons for these communities. They will actually impure the other communities because those communities are not criminal tribes. We have around 4% women and 96% men in India right now, 4.5% or something. Almost 22,000 women prisoners we have in India. Yeah, as I said, the Nirbhaya guys, they used to come to our class and we used to, like, imagine my colleague Elena talking to Vinay about consent. Government is very receptive towards good models. What I realize over the year, and I have got chance to work in other parts of the world as well, there is a momentum in government to bring change in prisons.
Welcome to the Statesman Talk. I'm your host, Anna Chaudhary, and I have with me today Mr. Mohit Raj, who is the co-founder of Project Second Chance, India's first prison reform program that focuses on incarcerated youth as well as adult prisoners. Mohit also co-founded Turn Your Concern into Action, or TYCIA, which is an organization improving educational access for children across India. Mr. Raj, welcome to a podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So I'd like to ask you what actually, drove you and inspired you to start TYCIA.
Yes, so I started this institution almost 15 years back. I was an MBA finance kid. Me and my co-founder, who is supposedly my best friend, we were walking home from our college and we saw these two young kids. One was 10-year-old on the roadside and who basically have never been to school. When I asked their father, who was a roadside tailor.
Okay.
And we asked the kid that why you are not in school. And then we realized that it's a huge problem for migrant population, that when they move from rural areas to urban, they lose a lot of documents. They actually don't send their children back there because half of the year they are back in villages, half of the year they are in cities. So that made us realize, that's a problem which couldn't be solved.
Yeah.
So that's what made us inspire that how can we work for children who have missed first few years of education? Can we have special schools for them? So this non-profit actually started with starting special schools where children could bridge the first few years of academic gap. Okay. And how we could fill that quickly and get them to the government schools corresponding grades. So if a child is 10, have never been to school, have missed first four classes. So can we in next 1 year fill the gaps, all the main concepts of first 5 years, fill it and get them to the 5th grade directly so they could study further.
And this is for, you'd say, for how many years does it cover? Is there a limit to how you can help these children? And what are the first few years that you mentioned?
First few years are usually 5 to 6th grade. If somebody have missed more than 6th grade something, it's very difficult to cope back. And you can fill an academic gap of 4 or 5 years in 1 to 1.5 years by teaching them special curriculum, which is called bridge course. So it's like all the main concepts of main classes. You fill that and then the child could make it to the corresponding grade. We started back 14 years back,
14 years ago. And how has the response been?
It's difficult actually because you just don't have to fill the academic gap. You have to also work with children on their habits, daily habits, to come to the school, to make sure they are somewhere compatible to different grades. Imagine you have to sit with somebody who should be in 3rd grade, but I'm in 6th grade. How you can bring that compatibility, etc.
Also, removing the embarrassment of it, because you feel that you're maybe older and sitting with younger students, you feel maybe not smart enough.
You just have to make them love schooling. You have to create an environment where they feel that this is better than being on the street. That's
a big task.
That's a big task, but that's also a fun task, like to make somebody fall in love with education again, who actually have never got chance. Because if somebody is 10, 12, they know that the other kids go to school.
Yeah.
It's just, I am not going that. I don't have that privilege. So a lot of love, care, at the same time, a lot of skills are required to create that. And we have been lucky that we got the team who actually care about it and are providing it.
Okay. And is there resistance that you actually face while convincing these children to actually join back school? Because, you know, you
Yeah.
have, of course, we are a poor country and you have a lot of children that are born
Yeah,
for
yeah.
as earning hands.
Yes, yes.
So, how do you convince the parents and how do you convince the children? It's a huge shift in mindset, actually, convincing them to be off the streets and go to school
Yeah, it's
without and you're not paying them, and it's a daily survival issue. So,
it's a mammoth task to counsel parents that a 12-year-old or a 10-year-old who has started going with the mother to the house to
Factories.
clean or have a small job at a grocery store, to counsel them that no, at least for first few hours of the day send the kid to the school. But what we have realized over the years, parents do have intentions. They just feel that education, eventually jobs are something which are beyond their capacity, their kids will not get. And especially they feel very hopeless that first few years are missed, how my child will cope up again. So all that counseling that the future will be better, parents come on board. And once parents come on board, then we just need to make that it's fun for the child. So that's how it happens.
okay, so that they actually stick through the course. Because, you know, 1.5 years is a long time.
Majority of them, but there are always dropouts. India still have a problem of major dropouts.
What is the rate?
The rate, I can't give you the larger government rate right
Yeah.
now because that's a big number.
In your
but
experience, what is
in
it?
our
been?
experience, 10% dropout is max, which we have hit ever.
Okay.
Like, and that too happens when summer vacations happen. Kids go back to the villages, but they don't come back. That's one of the reason. Holi, Diwali, kids go back, they don't come back. Very few kids, like less than 5%, I could say, drop out because they don't like coming or something. So yeah.
So, Mohit, I'd like to ask you that how does TYCI tackle challenges in providing educational access across diverse regions in India? Because, of course, India, different regions would account for different problems and unique issues that you
Yes.
would face. So, could you talk about those, please?
So over the past 14 years, we realized that there are very special communities in India. These communities are people who are in conflict with law. Conflict with law is basically anybody who have either been incarcerated or have a case around them in their family or themselves. We realize there are around four set of problems. People usually either are incarcerated or have been to prison because of caste they belong to or tribe they belong to.
Okay.
Caste or tribe based livelihood. So imagine there is a community which used to generationally make alcohol. That's their job basically. So a lot of time you get in conflict with prisons around it, even if you don't do it anymore.
So, like, do you mean something like people who basically create who make hooch in Bihar and stuff like that?
Something like this. In Delhi or North India, those people are called Sasis a lot.
Okay.
So Sasi community usually actually makes alcohol generationally or used to sell drugs. Lot of Sasis don't do it anymore, but they still get into conflict with law. Lot of people.
How does that happen?
Because they come from a community which has been stereotyped and tabooed along. They also live in places together. So a lot of time, if one Sasi have done something, a lot of times police just takes away
Okay, we'll take someone else because
someone else or something. So that also happens.
And how much does that happen? Would you say?
A lot. I can't give you a number to be honest, but a lot happens with people who actually get wrongly accused. We have like almost 75% plus people who are still under trials in Indian prison. People have they are not being proved guilty. So that itself tells that there are a lot of people who are somewhere in the process of access to justice. They have not got justice. So nobody knows they have done it or not done it. Then there are a lot of communities in India which have been in conflict with law because where they live. So imagine somebody live near the border areas. Imagine somebody live in the tribal forests. So when Britishers came, or maybe during colonial times, lot of tribes had their own relationship with forest. So I belong to a tribe in central India. I used to go and cut the tree or make local alcohol, but Britishers wanted a different relationship with the forest. They wanted as per the Forest Act or something. Now they people used to get incarcerated a lot. So lot of tribes were actually called denotified tribes or criminal tribes in India. They are
Criminal
called it.
tribes.
That's a
Wow.
word actually. That's a word in a lot of
Must
states.
be coined by the British.
Must be, yeah. It's coined by the in the colonial times. Lot of tribes in Madhya Pradesh, Odisha, Chhattisgarh, etc. are called criminal tribes. There, if you go to Gujarat, you will find some of the special prisons for these communities. They were actually like, if this person belongs to this tribe, put them in a special community prison. That used to happen a
And
lot.
what exactly would be different in that special prison?
Lot of inhuman treatment.
You're saying it's actually worse?
Worse than the normal prisons actually. Inhuman treatment, a lot of, because they were supposed to not mingle with other
Because
communities.
they'll
As per for them, they will actually impure the other communities because those communities are not criminal tribes. So a lot of those kind of things used to happen. And a lot of times just simply because these people have history of being incarcerated in the family. So all these communities are big communities in India. What we do is we actually are trying to take out some young leaders from these communities and make them represent their communities,
in a
educate
positive
them,
light.
get them jobs, open schools in prison. We open schools in the prison campuses so they can actually study, give them legal rights, legal education, mental health support, so they can break the cycle of incarceration for these people themselves. Yeah.
Okay. So you're actually helping them amalgamate back into the society or facilitating that change. Because otherwise, there's a lot of feeling of course, resentment and many other things that the prisoners, the inmates would actually be going through, that I've been, cut off from society. And by the time that the trial concludes, you've lost out on those years, even if you're not guilty.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. Somebody who I work with, he's one of our fellow. He himself comes from a Sasi community. His mother have been to prison. His grandmother have been to prison. It's a generational problem of incarceration happening. But they don't pursue this work anymore. He was in prison for something else, but because of being this community, he did not got good lawyers. Even they don't, even these communities don't get good legal representation. Lawyers don't want to represent them because they think they are the tribes which we, or communities we don't want to represent. uh, this guy is now building a legal tech platform where he is finding cases from prison who are from these communities and get them good progressive pro bono lawyers to represent and get them out of prison. That is what we want to do. People who have lived the problems need to create solutions for their communities. And that's where he's bringing these people out and somewhere reintegrating them back by providing them jobs, by providing them education, etc. So that is what our larger vision is. People who have lived the problem should create the solution for their own communities. And we should just facilitate that.
I think that's a very beautiful approach.
Yeah, that's what. Thank you.
And would you like to share some positive stories? I'm sure there have been positive stories as well. So,
I'll tell you about somebody called Avnish. He spent 5 years in Delhi prisons. After 5 years, he walked as a free man. He got acquitted. But still, that doesn't take his 5 years of life. He went to the prison when he was 19, came out when he was 24.
most impressionable years, actually.
Most impressionable. He always says this word that these were the golden years of my life. But he chose, when he came out, he struggled really badly around coming back to the society. He was not finding job. He was not even the house he was living in. The landlord actually said no, that they don't want to give anymore. So he was struggling around that. What he did, he joined us full time, and he realizing, he made a database of 10 issues which people face when they come out. They may not get housing, no jobs. If they want to study further, no mental health support, no legal, because cases don't end once you come out of the prison.
Absolutely.
You are under trial. So you want legal support. You may have drug addiction problems. You may want to actually get and he built a database like a yellow book for 150 organizations or government agencies which provide this support. So where are the shelter homes in Delhi? Where are the organizations which give legal support? Where can you go and get mental health support? And he created a yellow book, and now he actually created a helpline, India's first helpline for released prisoners. And this guy runs it now. And he actually, almost 150 people in a week call him and get this support, and he coordinates between these agencies to provide them support. And that's a great story, I feel, which actually somebody who lived the problem but now is changing it
This is
for
becoming part of
others.
the solution.
Yeah, he's become the part of the solution. And he's not just becoming, he's leading it.
Leading it,
We really want to promote that they should be the leaders at the forefront. They understand the problem way more than me.
And would you also talk about women and the challenges that women face in prisons?
Yes.
Also, what is the proportion of say female inmates inside prisons?
Yes, proportionately, we have around 4% women and 96% men in India right now, 4.5% or something. Almost 22,000 women prisoners we have in India.
Okay.
Most states do not have separate prisons for, though it is recommended that need to have a separate prison. Most states have a separate section of the prison for, though Delhi prisons have a separate prison, jail number 6 for women. Women actually have pretty much similar issues, but the genesis of crimes are different.
Also, there must be crimes against them in
So lot of women you are going to meet in Indian prisons are basically, they are in murder of their husband.
murder of their husband.
Their murder
That's
of
not
the-
surprising.
Murder of the family who actually was actually doing extreme abuse against them.
So it's a last. It's basically when, as a last resort, when the woman could probably not,
Yes.
handle and has been a victim herself and
Or
decided to.
a lot of women you meet are in murder of their quote unquote pimps. Basically, they're like, because they were pushed again by them to do more and more sex work, more brutal sex work. So a lot of times the genesis is different. I'm not saying that all women who are in Indian prisons are somebody. There are
course.
people. A lot of women in Indian prisons are also in drug selling, are also in sex work, dowry cases. The problem is that we still don't have good solutions for them. If you see, there is still some prison reform happening for men. But for women, the maximum solutions on prison reform is like menstruation programs or something. While they need equal amount of legal aid, they need equal amount of mental health support. But the best we could do is just take sanitary pads for them or something. That is what is happening.
So, what are some of the biggest challenges that you've faced, while implementing TYCI's initiatives, and how did you actually overcome those?
Biggest challenge is to work in prisons. Like, it's not a easy geography when you go in. It's emotionally and physically very taxing for us, for team. Like, if you go to Tihar jail, you have to walk almost 1.5 kilometers to get inside to the gate. Then you need to go to 3 times, like you need to have 3 set of checkings which happen. And then it's an emotionally taxing environment. Like, you are, my colleague Alina used to be single woman in 1,000 men prisons. And you are, and the work which we were doing was also a special work with men who have committed crime against women. So now she's sitting in a room with 70 men who have committed as brutal rapes or murders, and you have to talk to them about consent. And that is what we were teaching, like, because they will go back to their same families.
Yeah.
And so it's emotionally very taxing work. But there's also a lot of hope in the place called prison.
I'd like to interrupt you, Mohit, for
yeah.
a second. Can you please tell us more about this? Actually, so what goes on in the minds of men who actually commit crimes against women, these prisoners? Because I'm sure they come from a certain thought process. There's of course patriarchy, maybe heat for the moment, or other reasons. So please tell us about.
So we did in 2017 April, we did a 300 men survey. Men who have committed or were accused of crime against women, stalking, dowry, rape, murder. And we were actually asking the influencing factors, what was happening. So there were some very interesting things. We found that 96% of those crimes happened in 4 kilometers of where you live. So a lot of times it was in your home, or if it's a stalking case, it's the bus stop near your home or something. A lot of influencing factors were around consumption of substance abuse and gender issues. One big understanding
Gender
was,
issues, could you
So,
please
like-
elaborate that further?
so like they just have no context of consent. Nobody have ever talked to them how a woman would feel. Should they ask or something? Like 65% of them openly admit in that survey about marital rape. They were like, because nobody ever talked to them what is a marital rape. They're like, yeah, when we wanted to do, we were doing it with our wives. So that concept doesn't exist that, okay, how a woman must be feeling while it was happening. A lot of times these men were into pornography a lot. One big thing was peer pressure. So a lot of times they're like, oh yeah, my friends were actually asking me to do this to my colleague and I did it or something. A lot of peer pressure. So influencing factors are very different. But what we realized, if you build a good conversation with them around what is consent, how masculinity works, how patriarchy is something which is inbuilt in their approach, in their behavior, they learn.
Do you
And
think that it's they agree at that point of time, and or do you think there's actually sustained change that takes place? Because, for example, they know the correct answer. You know that they know that we are in here. So of course, society at large would maybe believe that abhi jo bhi bolna hai aap bol dein. That I believe in consent. I've understood. You're teaching me. Very nice. I've learned. But I'll go back and do the same thing because I think you are the exception and I am the rule.
yeah. Both actually. Not everybody. If there are 30 men in our class, this program is called Unlearn. The idea is to unlearn what you have learned around gender. So if 30 men, not everybody is going to go back and be very respectful to women around them, but a majority of them are actually. We do a lot of impact assessment because it's a behavioral change program.
Yes.
We are not talking once like, oh, this is what consent is, you should learn. What lot of context around it, lot of ideas, lot of emotions goes inside. They cry in the classroom. They cry in the classroom around their own behavior. It's a lot of process inside. Once you're inside prison, you go through a lot inside because now you're cut off the world. You have so much to process. And if somebody is pushing you about how women are feeling in your family when you were doing this, or how a woman feels when you go to a local market and you touch them in the back, they're going back and thinking a lot when they sleep in the barracks. So a lot of them actually have really good change as well. Their partners have shared with us. We do impact assessment with sisters, mothers, wives of these people. A lot of these women have shared that yes, my husband doesn't do that anymore.
And what would you say are the primary challenges that inmates face when they're actually inside, the prisons?
The biggest challenge is access to justice. 94% people in major prisons of India are coming from acute poor background. Their annual income of the families are less than 1 lakh rupees. What they feel that if I had as much resources as a rich person, I would not have been here. They don't get legal aid the way they should get. They don't get mental health support. They have no jobs outside or they have no trainings inside. Some prisons are doing very good programs around training them into plumbing, training them into different jobs, but largely acute poverty and they don't have money to go get out of the system is something what they face.
I've also heard that, a lot of people are in jails because of, as you mentioned, poverty, that they don't have enough money to even, cough up the fines that are imposed on them, which could be a small amount, maybe 1,500 or 2,000 rupees.
Yeah, the bail, a lot of people actually who have finished their things, they got bail but are still stuck. But government is doing something around it. They made something called Under Trial Review Committee. Home Ministry did it and created a fund around it recently. It's in the process. I was part of the Under Trial Review Committee process as well. And this is going to be one problem which we are going to solve soon, actually, to get the people who have done things but they're served time, but now bail amount can be taken care by the government.
So, Mohit, I'd like to ask you, how does your organization actually ensure sustainability and scalability in your programs?
Like one big part is if you have created a leader like Avnish, now he got a purpose in life.
Yeah.
He's running the helpline, not just a program. He's running as an entrepreneur.
And with his own motivation.
His own motivation. Now he found a purpose. After serving 5 years in prison, he's going to do this full time. He has built his team. He's raising his own funds. So we believe if you have a leader who cares, who have lived the problem, now they're going to do it forever. They are not going to, and these are resilient people. I'll bet you, if you will spend 7 days in Tihar jail, the kind of resilience you will build towards the life, you cannot build it anywhere else. That's the world they come from. So one big part of sustainability is this. Second is we provide them funds. We somewhere also teach them the skills how they can actually go and raise funds. Lot of their models are actually raising funds in itself. So that is how we create sustainability a lot around our program. Scale is simple. Whatever we have designed, we ask government to adopt it. So one of our fellow, similar, spent 3 years in the prison, built India's first school in the prison. It's a special curriculum from the people's life who have spent. Now, 3 states have adopted this school in there. So now Uttarakhand actually have a school in Dehradun prison by the system where their people are teaching, and we have just provided them trainings and curriculum. That is what we do. Uttarakhand government is also adopting this helpline. So we want states to adopt these models which our ex-prisoners are designing. That is what scale for us is.
And, how do you collaborate with the local communities and governments to actually improve your outcomes overall?
Government, I'll tell you, it looks like from outside, we work very closely with the government. Government is very receptive towards good models. What I realize over the year, and I have got chance to work in other parts of the world as well, there is a momentum in government to bring change in prisons. We have this large issue right now. 13% India is right now 1,300 prisons. In 1,300 prisons, there are 550,000 people. But this is a wrong number. 550,000 is today. Overall, in 1 year, almost 18 lakh people come. Because somebody goes out in 10 days, somebody comes in, 18 lakh people. Government is worried that our prisons are overcrowded. So they want to bring good models of reformation. What is the problem? There are not many good models. So what government is doing is they are building this civil society network which they want models to adopt like us. So what we are doing is we go and find these bright spots in Home Ministry, Department of Justice, NALSA, and we say like, hey, this is somebody have done, would you like to adopt? That happens. It's actually, I'll tell you something. Like, last year was one of the years where the President Murmu gave a statement to all Supreme Court judges how she's worried about people in the prison, especially poor prison. Mr. Amit Shah came up with this new Model Prison Act, etc. They are the two biggest actors right now who actually want to promote prison reforms. And if you have these people, what we need is like somewhere some momentum which is getting created.
And do you think there's certain things that have actually improved and certain things that you believe that maybe need more attention in the prison systems as they are right now?
Change is a slow process, but it's very evident if you see in a longer timeline. Sometimes we see, it's not changed, nothing is changing. India, when it got independence 75 years back, our average age was 33 years. Today we have reached it by 71. That's the change India has achieved. Like that's because of public health improvement. So if you see in our lifetime, we used to put handcuffs to people inside prison. Prisons used to be like animal shelters. Now, if you go to some prisons in this country, they're not like that anymore. I'm not saying that, prisons are amazing places. It's still a very brutal, lot of violent spaces. But things are improving. There are a lot of reformation is happening. One of the best model I could say is around this school only, which I talked about. If you could open a school inside prison where people are going like a day, it's like at 7 a.m. they get up, have breakfast, go from their barracks to the school, 5 p.m. finishes and come back. That's something which is completely a reformative model a lot of parts of the world have not seen. Okay. So that is what is happening.
All right. So Mohit, I'd actually like to know that basically what we normally see is the image we have that Bollywood creates for us and movies in general. Yeah. So would you maybe tell us what it actually looks like? What does a regular, typical day and week look like for, an inmate? Yeah,
I'll say if you imagine Tihar, okay? Yeah. You will walk inside, you will on the first go feel you are walking in a university campus. Okay. It feels like it's a university, big walls, really green spaces, good trees. Even if in some prisons of Tihar you have swans and you have ducks, etc., going around, you see some men standing and working, etc. But that's a picture which not every prison have in this
Yeah.
country.
So what's the typical? I want you to draw like a typical picture of what happens in Indian prisons. Say in
So-
UP, in
So in Indian prisons, like if I'll say, a lot of brutality and violence happens
please tell us
behind the
about that.
doors.
Yeah,
Behind the doors.
and how does the police misuse its powers? Maybe
Yeah,
some of
yeah,
those and some hardworking
definitely.
stories.
Everything happens inside prisons. Like, okay, not just police, between each other. Lot of gang violence happens inside it. People wake up, every prison have a different time, but somewhere around 5 to 6 a.m. everybody has to get up, get out. There could be, like, imagine 10 bathrooms on 1,000 people. So the first struggle which a prisoner face is like this morning struggle around going to the washroom. Okay, extremely dirty, extremely dirty. A lot of people get the water. Even where prisons are, except Delhi prisons and some prisons, most prisons are made outside cities, in places where there was no value of land. So these places have no water at all, really bad water. So you struggled if you don't even want to put that water on your body. They have to drink that water. They get up, then they have like those breakfast. If you will actually hold those rotis, you could actually break this table with it. So hard, because they have to create thousands of rotis with this much man. They do that, people eat that, and then you actually, lot of prisons have nothing to do after that. You are just like, you're supposedly come out of the barrack at this point, and in the daytime you're supposed to walk around, do some reformative activities, but not most prisons have that. Some prisons do. So you are just wasting your time. A lot of people have to go for their mulaqat. The family members come to meet. So if somebody is coming, so you have to go and meet them, or your court date is coming. So you have to go for the court date.
Yeah.
And then you actually just watch TV little bit. If you have the TV, you watch TV. There's something news or movies, and then you by 4 to 6 p.m. in different prisons, you are again locked up. Then you are locked up for rest of the day. You get food and you are locked up again. So that's what happens actually. But between all of this, a lot of gang wars, a lot of marginalization of poor. So if I'm a rich prisoner, I'm gonna make you do my laundry inside. Take care of, you have to somewhere give me a massage, you have to take care of all my work, etc. So that what all happens a lot. And if I'm not gonna do this, I'm gonna beat you out, or I'm gonna get you actually into this. By this time also, police actually, or the prison department also, lot of prisons have jobs inside. Prisons are not run by actually staff. Prisons are run by
the inmates,
senior
right?
inmates. So they have, some people get good jobs, but rest of them are just lying and waiting for things.
And I believe that it's sort of like a parallel, not a technically a parallel government or a mafia, whatever you may call it, that operates inside these jails.
Yes.
That you have people who could have been outside, but they actually prefer staying inside. An example would be of a well-known gangster who's quite in the headlines these days, and that he's killed someone, and he chooses to be inside, and he's functioning perfectly fine from inside the jail.
What I can say is those are only few in Indian prison. Those are the media people we see.
Yeah.
Indian prisons are full of extreme poor people, basically marginalized people. However, you can get that life. Nobody likes to actually be restricted in a boundary walls. Nobody wants to do that. If I'm gonna give you the best of the best food on the table right now, you have the TV here, you have everything, but if I'm gonna ask you, you cannot go out of this room, you will go nuts after a point. And that what happens in prison. So majority of people are basically that. But yes, I'm sure, being NGOs, we don't know that well, to be honest, because we have our restrictions as well.
All right.
They're called some other wards, basically high profile wards. These are high profile wards where we don't know what is happening inside those barracks. But rest of the world is more like this.
Okay, but it does happen.
We also
In a
hear
limited
stories.
capacity.
We don't know those stories personally. It's very difficult because you don't know that what's happening in a high profile barrack, because you're not allowed to get in.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
But I can tell you, I have met the other side of the things as well. There are a lot of high profile people I met inside who were actually doing social work like us, who are doing helping people like us. Like I can tell you about somebody very, I don't want to name him, but very famous guy, spent years in prison because of this. Even they made a movie out of his life, and I had no idea who this guy was. We were working inside. He came and he started helping us. Oh, you should design this curriculum for people would like to learn about this thing in legal aid or something. And we're like, who is this person who's speaking this functional English in an accent with telling us exactly? And he had such wonderful ideas around what people require in prison reforms. And then we got to know that he himself, from his own funds, have taken out hundreds of people out who were marginalized because they had no money to pay for bail. So there are those, that kind of life is also there. We met somebody who actually is famous in Tihar to go around on a cycle. He's in semi-open prison, we call them. He has a job. He actually had this habit of helping people write their applications. He used to write applications for people, so these poor people who cannot read and write can actually apply for their
Bail.
so we know what happens on this side. We don't know what is their life in the other side of the.
And Mohit, what's your long-term vision for your organization, and how do you see it evolving in the next say 5 years?
Yeah, we want to create hundreds of Avnish and Rahul, basically. That's what we want to do, who actually can create these new models of reformation and rehabilitation, more helpline, more schools in the prison, more legal platforms, more mental health solutions. And we have identified 7 prisons in India which are most influential. So if you go to Arthur Road in Maharashtra, you go to Gujarat prison, Kolkata prison, Delhi prisons. If there is school in all of these, if there is a helpline for all of these states, other in their region adopts it. So our vision in next 5 years, more leaders, more models in these 7 prisons. That is what we want to do.
And I'd like to know about who are exactly these people in behind bars in these prisons, and like how would you describe your average prisoner and what actually landed them there? So maybe if you have to sort of give characters to it.
Yeah.
So
I'll tell you, 77% people in Indian prisons are either tribals
yeah.
or Dalits or religious minorities. They come from extreme poor background. The genesis of crime in India is very different from, imagine, America. In US, you go and you see that somebody is going to go to the school and shoot kids.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen in India. The genesis is like, I live in my village. I have gone to work as a house support in the city, but my brother have actually now have taken away my piece of land. I'll go back and I got into a fight and some bad thing happened. The genesis is usually civil in nature. It was a civil problem which became a crime.
Okay.
Or if I was working in a factory in Tughlakabad and as a helper, and my salary was not coming. And then we actually, 5 of us got together and actually violence happened in all of this towards the manager. These are real life stories who I'm talking about. This guy, his name is Shahabuddin. He was working in Tughlakabad and violence happened, and then that's how he got into the prison. These are very marginalized people. What happens usually in their cases is, by the time they could prove themselves right or wrong, what happened in all of this, they spent years in prison, and Indian prisons are full of them.
Mohit, would you talk a little about how do other countries, work with their prisons? Because you've had exposure to other prisons as well. You have a bit of an idea of how those work. Say, like in Japan, one of the main reasons that elderly women are filling up the jails
because
is
of
basically
loneliness.
of loneliness, and also just the high cost of medical
Living
insurance
outside,
and medical facilities,
Yeah.
which is heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking. And what I can say is, in some ways, it happens in India as well. If you go in December, November to Tihar, you have more population because it's so cold outside. Some people just commit crime because they want to go inside and they will get a kambal and a roof and food. So it happens in India as well. Like a lot of people just in some states, you will actually not you will find people who don't want to even go out just because they have no one to go. We 2017, with help of the DG prisons, we took out how many people are in Delhi prisons who actually nobody have ever come to meet them. They have been here for more than 10 years. They don't call anybody, etc. 476 people came at around that time. And the DG at that time, Mr. Sudhir Yadav, just somehow arranged bails for them, etc., to get them out and provide support system. What happens in other countries? I got chance to work in US criminal justice system. What I realize that they are way like President Obama. I got chance to sit with him, talk to him. He asked me what is one thing which I learned in American criminal justice system over lunch, and I asked him, everything I have learned here is something which I need to make sure it doesn't happen in India. That was my answer to him, because what I feel is they have built private prisons. America even have this problem of private prisons. Right now, you could see there are wildfires in California. Who are the people who are going and doing the wildfire work? It's the prisoners from California. They get so less paid, and they are trained to do this.
And they also like to keep, people in the prison, and which I think the previous one of the the officials basically got into a lot of controversy because she signed an order ensuring that people remain in prisons.
Yeah, people,
And they don't
because
get-
they're making money by keeping. Imagine if a corporation runs a prison in Delhi.
Yeah.
It is making more sense for them to keep people in the prison because they want
Cheap
to have,
labor.
they're paid, cheap labor. So that way, American criminal justice system is very messed up.
So you think we're doing better than them?
Oh, we are way better than them. Like, I'll tell you, the problems are similar, little bit. 25% of world population of prisons is in America right now. If you talk about numbers, on every 1 lakh people, we only house around 35 people in prisons. On every 1 lakh people in US, they are hosting almost 600 people in prisons. America brought policies to incarcerate people more. India, it's a blessing in disguise. I always feel we don't have resources to keep people inside. India churn people. It's already, so they're going to take it out and they're going to bring back after a few years. But what I can say is European standards are actually, especially Scandinavian standards, are the best prisons. I visited prisons in Sweden, etc. They have actual reform policies around prisons, what to do with people, how to teach them, how to make sure they don't commit crime, etc. I was sitting with Estonian head of the prisons, and I asked them, what are you guys doing? He said, we have one kid in the juvenile system. I was like, come on, leave them. If he's going to leave them, you will eradicate the problem. His case was different. But 20 years back, they had a policy around it. How we are going to reduce this population? How we are going to reduce the people who are committing crime? India needs that today.
Okay.
India doesn't have 2047 goal for prisons. We have for everything else.
Mohit, I'd also like to ask you, what's been your experience, because you have a lot of exposure to also Tihar jail and, its functioning. So how would you describe that?
Yeah, what I can say is Tihar is a little bit better than other prisons, but still a wild animal. It's a wild animal. Like Tihar have its own problems. It's almost 3 times how much the population it needs to be. It actually has a lot of problem of corruption inside as well. What Tihar is struggling a lot is around finding this balance between these high profile celebrity cases, how to handle them, and then the common people. But still, being part of Delhi under Home Ministry, they still have more rules and processes. I'll tell you, even Nirbhaya guys were our class. They used to come to our class. This guy Vinay used to actually paint in one of our workshops. Here, there is expectation that a lot of times you will get better treatment than others in other prisons.
There's
There's expectation of people inside that at least some human rights will be taken care of. But you solely depend which socio-demographic background you come from. Also, for these people, what I could say, prisons have its own hierarchy. If you have committed murder, if you have committed robbery, you're still okay. If you have committed crime against women, you're not treated well. If you have committed crime against children, you are at the bottom of the bottom. So that's why a lot of violence happens around these men as well.
And could you talk about some more, maybe more famous cases, that we've heard of and media's covered? Some people that you've worked with who are little maybe
Yeah,
popular.
as I said, the Nirbhaya guys, they used to come to our class, and we used to, like, imagine my colleague Elena talking to Vinay about consent. That you're like, oh, what happened? Why do you think this is okay for a man to do this, etc. Some people understand, some people don't. We can't say.
What happened in this case?
In this case, he used to say that he had a big regret around this. He used to say it. He used to confess it in a more private space. And otherwise, we did not used to bring it in a public space.
Yeah.
He used to say that there's a huge regret around it. He actually made a painting. I may have a picture of it somewhere in our workshop, where there was a leaf, a big leaf, and in middle of it there was a small baby girl. Actually, he made it and wrote Ram 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 everywhere around it. So I asked him, what is this? And he said, like, I wish this girl is born again, or something. But what I could also see, he had no context that what is the brutality of what happened in this case. He thought his storyline was around, yeah, this happened, it was wrong, what happened, I did not do it, so Sheil did it. I did not do it, somebody else did it.
So there's no sense of actually.
So yeah, there was some sense something is going wrong, but by this time they had sense that they're going to be hanged soon. So they were like, it was more fear with this idea that, oh, someone save me? And we wanted to have this conversation that this idea around consent, or what this idea of brutality is, something that they could recognize, which was, I don't think, which happened by the time they were gone.
And do you think, because if we look at trends, I don't know if it's being covered more, or, we're just more aware of it, or has it actually increased? Because such crimes, like such heinous crimes against women, such brutal rapes and murdering and chopping up, these kind of things that we hear of, has actually increased post Nirbhaya. What do you think has actually caused this? Because it's a very disturbing trend. And as a society, we aren't becoming better when it comes to crimes against women. What do you think is causing all of this?
Like, what I could say is, whatever happens becomes a norm. Like, once you get used, once you hear, oh, if this is the thing which could happen, society pushes it. That's the crime psychology. A lot of times, what we are realizing, it used to happen before as well. Because of presence of media more, it gets covered. There is some sense of violence which a man could create in India, which I think it's wild, towards women. And what we are realizing is that these men, nobody have ever talked to them around how a woman could feel around it. So what we need to do is to raise better men. Teach them this very early in life. It should happen in schools. We promote Unlearn program, should start as early as with a boy as 12-year-old. Should actually understand what.
So along with sex education, this should also be taught.
Yes, sex education is not enough. We are realizing you can't teach somebody body anatomy and expect to understand how to behave in a relationship tomorrow. Or when you are online, when a girl is posting something, what to write or what not to write. The kind of online violence now girls feel in this country, the kind of comments which comes, it's unbelievable. And when we talk to these boys, actually, I met somebody, one of my first days in Tihad. I was walking inside. We don't used to ask who did what. We never asked that.
Okay.
This boy came to me and they were like, just started venting out. And he was like, oh, ये क्या तरीका था, मुझे क्या पता था, मैंने तो 105 बार ही कॉल किया था. So, and my first reaction was, I'm not going to ask क्यों किया था, किसको किया था. But his friend came. And he's like, अरे सर, इसको देखो, इसने तो हाँ 105 बार ही कॉल किया था, उस लड़की ने आत्महत्या कर ली. So he never understood, while he was inside for 2 years, case was going on, that this was a stalking and an abuse case. How this woman would have felt if this, and he also added a line, हर तरीके की फोटो तो भेजती थी मेरे को. She used to send every kind of like a nude to me or something. How can she not pick up my call that night 105 times when I called this girl, stalked her outside her house in the morning, and she committed suicide inside? This guy, he had no recognition to this while he was in prison for 2 years.
And do you think, art cinema like Bollywood and, Tollywood and all the other industries, actually, like the entire Bhojpuri industry and everything, really promotes this? Because people are...
Oh, yes.
People aren't as evolved as, I think the filmmakers and everyone should also be more responsible with the kind of content that they're producing.
Filmmakers don't like accountability, I know, but they should sometime come to the prison, spend time with it, that who are the heroes of these boys, what kind of songs they love, what kind of what kind of references they give.
Yeah.
Like one of our workshop is just about these songs and the IPC sections, like Sadi Ke Falsa, da da da, or I don't know what those songs are, and which IPC section this guy will be charged in. If this
He
song
actually
is like,
emulates what the
yeah.
hero
And
is
then
doing.
these boys come up with these songs, and sometimes these songs are like, these are not Bollywood songs. These are not Punjabi music. This is local Haryanvi songs,
Yeah.
local Bihari songs, where they come up with these explicit line around this, how actually you should drug this woman if you're gonna meet her or something. People don't realize it, that how arts like this actually could influence a young boy, and they share examples around it to each other. And then once we make them realize, oh, this will get this into IPC section, they realize, oh yes, this is wrong or something, what this songs promote. But that doesn't stop them dancing next time on it.
So in a way, basically, you'd also say that as a society, even though we have laws against it, but as a society, we are quite okay with crime against women. And it's instilled, in our households, and because of various reasons, because of patriarchy, because of many other things, that it's okay. And it's sort of, in the middle of, it's touching all right, acceptable and not acceptable. So if the girl agrees, then you're a hero. If she doesn't, then suddenly, you're punished and you're villainized. But there's nothing intrinsically wrong in the act itself. That's the message that's going out.
It's a behavioral issue in a society, in a society like India. We can tell you, we realize three things what happens here. We met this boy. He was 70. He crossed 17. He was in adult prison. He basically told us that he saw his mom all the life got beaten up by dad in the evening. He thought that this is wrong. But then once his sister started going to tuitions and coming late, he thought this is the norm. I could do the same to my sister.
Yeah. That I'm just nicer if I'm not doing it, but I'm within my
I
rights to do
think,
it.
they're like, ideally we should not do it, but what is the other way to control a woman? That kind of mindset.
Okay.
So that happens a lot, yeah.
Mohit, what happens to inmates after they've been released? Please talk a little about that.
So I'm going to talk about mostly what happens to most inmates,
Most
marginalized,
inmates,
poor inmates. Once they come out of the prison, society discards them.
Yeah.
They can't go back to their villages. Families discard them. Lot of mental health issues around it. Like we had somebody who actually shared with us that, oh, I live with my family, but if any relatives come to our house, I'm not supposed to come out. I'm asked to sit inside.
Yeah, because it brings, it would be stigmatizing for the entire
entire
family.
People share that we are asked not to come to weddings of family members or something. It's very difficult for people to get married, etc. After that, job is a huge issue. Job is like they're not accepted back to the things they were doing.
Yeah.
Mostly people get into jobs like dhabas, kind of. You don't know if you're eating at a dhaba, who's cooking your food. But if I was doing, imagine a plumbing job, I will never get it because nobody wants a plumber inside house who has been to prison.
Absolutely.
So a lot of these people completely go lost in the world. And then that makes some people actually revolt back. They understand, like I even say, getting to a main prison is like you're doing MBA in criminal practices, because there you already build network now. You have a network, how you build it in an MBA college. You are actually mentored, and your professors are the big gangsters. So now you are actually have all the possibility to getting into big crimes, which you were not supposed to do before. You were not doing it before. So a lot of people actually go back to the crime again. A lot of recruitment happens by gangsters, big gangsters inside prisons. They find the most vulnerable one who have no family support, who have no money. How can I get this person to my gang or something? So a lot of times vulnerable people get into these cycles as well.
So, Mohit, could you share some real examples of people you've worked with who've been falsely incarcerated and have paid a hefty price for it? I'm sure there'd be many such stories.
As I said in Avnish's case, if you have to spend 5 years in the prison and one day you got acquitted, 5 years of your golden time is gone.
But maybe so Avnish would be still a silver lining. He would
Yeah,
be an
yeah.
exception.
Yeah.
But typically, what tends to happen? Maybe like something.
I'll tell you a story about this guy who came to our office after 12 years, straight from Tihar to our office. Never been out in between for a single day. He got released. He had nowhere to. He was from Banaras actually.
Okay.
So he had nowhere to go. He had no money to travel to Banaras back home. In 12 years, he had never been out. Somebody may have told him about our helpline. He had no phone to call. Somebody told them that okay, this office is in Green Park. This is the address. Maybe some guard or something. He got out and came straight with his bag to our office that if we could help him. This guy told us the story that his case is still going. Is an under trial. His case was still growing, and he finally had not even that much education that he could have applied for his bail for few years. Though there is a whole government mechanism around
But
it.
you need to know how to avail it. And unfortunately, only if you're privileged do you even know how
Yeah,
to go about it.
yeah. He had no idea that okay, there's something like Dalsa system. I could go, I can access. Somebody could follow up it outside or something. Now this guy actually shared with us the story that what he wanted from the system. He shared with us that I actually had no idea that this was happening to me, but what I wanted was my children. I had two kids who actually could study, and there's a provision around it by the government that if you're in prison, a magistrate could write that the children's education could be free.
Yeah.
Okay, and the school needs to do it. He used to request this. He learned writing. He learned literacy in the prison just to write these applications after 6 years. So he could do his bail and do this process. All of this time it did not happen. No magistrate wrote this. He went back after us. He went back. We followed up with him. How are things? We supported him, etc. Came back with one of his son again and told us that the other son became a gangster because nobody was there to follow up with him. Nobody was there to take care of him. He just wanted one thing from the system was if a magistrate could have written that these children could go to school. And that is what his regret. They pay a heavy price. And till this day, nobody knows this guy have done it or not because his case is still ongoing.
And it's been how many years now?
Must be 14 years now. It's been 2 years since this. So we don't know if this guy, what happened to this guy's case right now. But I'm talking about 2 years back this happened to them.
No, but also typically it takes 20 years, 30 years.
It takes a long time. But what I can see is now the system is realizing these are the people we need to solve the problem first. So now what DALSA system is doing is identifying these people in the prison who has been there but nobody follows up, and how can they provide legal machinery to them. But when Rahul did a survey, when he came out and he did a survey with marginalized people, in a span of 3 to 4 years, marginalized people change 9 to 10 lawyers. They get into debt of 5 to 6 lakh rupees to pay these lawyers.
Yeah.
And lawyers are a big problem. Lawyers need to realize that they cannot do this to marginalized people, what they do it. It's horrible stories around it. When people share that, lawyers don't even give people charge sheet.
Yeah.
That, okay, and
You
that's...
have to pay a price to
You have to
even
pay
get
a
charge
price.
sheet.
And
Which is technically your right.
you're right. If I have a 600-page charge sheet, I don't even have money, my family have no money to even do a photostat of it.
Yeah.
So that's the cases which are rotting in Indian prisons.
Mohit, lastly, I'd like to also ask you, What do you think are some, actionable steps that maybe the government can take to make the situation a little better around prisons? You mentioned that the government is doing things and we have, changes that are going to be rolled out soon. But additionally, maybe some neglected areas that you think should be focused upon and that something that can be actionably done.
Yeah, at the policy level, a lot could be done. A policy level, one thing which India needs to realize is they need to take a step, but not a wrong step.
Okay.
A wrong step which India could take is go the American way, build more prisons because there are more people coming. So we're gonna house more people rather than taking reformative activities more.
Yeah.
So one thing is definitely don't invest a lot on building prisons, invest more on reformative activities.
Do you think building more, more courts would help the cause? Because there's so many pending cases.
Yeah, those are the kind of things people should invest. In the other section of criminal justice, you could invest. Police reforms is a big part, like actually. I'll tell you a story about somebody we work. One of the cases we are not able to help actually. We openly admit we're not able to help this guy.
Okay.
His name is Messi. He's a good footballer, so the people call him Messi actually inside prison. He's 24, have been to prison 17 times. He's going to juvenile centers from 13-year-old. His case is so complex. He doesn't have a mother. His father is a rickshaw puller in Lajpat Nagar, sleeps on the rickshaw. So they don't have a home. Whenever this guy actually comes out of prison, he doesn't have a place to go. So what he does is he goes to Munirka to stay with his friends. His friends are a little bit better in social class, so they let him stay in their apartment. In the apartment, they make him do the jobs which you ask a person to do. Wash the floor, clean the floor, etc. All of those kind of things. He also have a substance abuse problem. So these friends actually expose him again to substance abuse. He gets into the cycle. And then his friends ask him, so he is like, he is a home break. Like, in this language, they call ghar chatkana. Ghar chatkana is like who robs your home. Okay. So they basically, so what happens, his friends ask him, chal ek aur ghar chatka de. Now you go and look for one more house, which you can actually break in. Then, and he's a professional one. He even tells us how he does that, how he does his Reiki, etc. of houses. उस घर से 3-4 लाख रुपए का सामान मिलेगा. We'll actually get you out in next time in few months with some of the money. Rest of the money we will enjoy with you. We can actually enjoy. So this guy is in this cycle. Now he's in this cycle for years. He comes out, he goes in. He comes out, he goes in. And now what happens? He is realizing, like last Diwali, he was in our office for Diwali party. He said after, I think more than 10 years, this is my first winters and first Diwali outside. I've been inside only. He was in our touch. We were able to work on multiple things, getting him some work, getting him a shelter, substance abuse problem, mental health issue. He still keeps like this small chaku inside. And like, you don't need it. Why do you need it?
The insecurity,
Coming from a lot of insecurities. By this time, we were able to figure out, we got a call one day and he was like, sir. And we were like, what? By the time we could enter, police took him away because it was Holi. So in Holi, Diwali, Republic Day, Independence Day, police take few people inside who are history sheeters because they could do things again. By this time, he was inside again. He's inside again now as well. So there are such people as well, which the government need to realize. Police needs to work on its behavior around it. Police needs to also work with civil society and other institutions to rehabilitate these people. The leadership have intention. If you meet an IPS, DG level people, they always have intention. It doesn't trickle down, the intentions. They have their lived experiences around these communities and they actually want to believe that. So the government needs to work on police reforms, judicial reforms. The government has to realize that more reformation practices like building more schools, more learning things inside prisons, mental health, legal aid issues, those are the things which government needs to do.
All right. Thank you so much for this conversation, Mr. Mohit.
Yeah, really appreciate.
I wish you the best for your organization.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. If you like this episode with Mr. Mohit Raj on prison reforms, then please like, subscribe, share, and comment. Thank you.